I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange. Hey there, spooky nerds, and welcome to Talking Strange, the Paranormal Pop Culture Show. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Sagers. And look, we're in spooky season. We're recording this at the top of spooky season. And as the rest of the United States gets into that spooky season spirit, getting together their costumes, decorating, drinking a lot of pumpkin spice latte, for some of us that are in the paranormal community as a profession and a passion, spooky season is not just a couple months, it's a way of life. And as we record this, we're going to be talking to five women who are influencers, content creators, equipment makers, and paranormal investigators who are pushing the paranormal field ahead while also making their mark across media. And let's face it, it's pretty obvious. Paranormal world, especially the TV world, is dominated by dudes. And there are a few notable exceptions that are women, such as remarkable exceptions like Amy Bruni and Kaza and Jessica Chobot, but it is still a landscape dominated by men on the TV side. So still a boys club, and really a white boys club with hardly any women of color out there out on the TV front, but definitely active on social media. It's a diverse group of people out there. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring in my guest to talk about these issues, talk about more, and let's get to it. Melisa Viva Farris has had a love of the paranormal, beginning by watching her dreams play out on television, and as an adult, that passion grew into a full-fledged business. He now lives in historic Marietta, Ohio, and is the co-owner of a tour/ghost hunting company called Hidden Marietta. And having had 6+ years of experience as a professional paranormal investigator under her belt, she's making a name for herself within the paranormal community. And thank you for joining me, Viva. We also have, here you are. It's good to see you again. And Amanda Noel is a paranormal researcher and investigator who is known for her research into the Lizzie Borden case and investigations across New England and beyond. She is a registered nurse who has been in healthcare for 12 years, and she uses this experience to communicate compassionately with spirits. She started sharing her investigations and research online in 2020 as a way to cope with working on the front lines of the pandemic. And since then, she's really exploded on social media and has given lectures on her research behind historic hauntings. Amanda, good to see you. A published author, active paranormal researcher and developer, an equipment builder and educational speaker, Lauren Hellekson has a deep appreciation and passion for the exploration of the supernatural. She has held educational workshops and lectures on both supernatural and technical topics, and most recently debuted a public research installation called The Resonance Chamber at Ohio's Madison Seminary that allows haunt enthusiasts to participate in a study that will take a deeper look into the correlation between our state of mind and experiencing supernatural phenomena. Amanda Paulson, our second Amanda, is a high strangeness investigator, researcher, and medium. She began ghost hunting in 2008 and provides psychic channeled readings for the public. She uses sensory isolation techniques with the spirit box in order to remove bias from Q&A style investigations of paranormal entities. She says she's a skeptic who just needed this job to help bridge the gap between paying work. And she's become more open to the possibility of supernatural truths as they are exposed to more and more investigations. Quiet and focused until things start to go bump in the night. And last but certainly not least, someone who I just spent several days with as part of the Spooky Explorers Club in Orlando, Beckie-Ann Galentine worked as a licensed embalmer in the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. She took an interest in history and the paranormal while being raised in an antique store. Her work in the mortuary field allows her to have a unique understanding of bereavement and the afterlife, describing her investigation style as empathetic and humanizing. Her social media presence has brought her paranormal research to light, and she has been featured in several paranormal documentaries. Those are all great bios, and sadly, we are now out of time.
See you later. Bye.
I know, right? I thank you all for joining me, and for all those that are watching in the background. If you have a question at some point, please use the hand raise function to register that question, and we'll try to get to it. Obviously, we have a lot of folks to talk to and a lot of topics to cover, but just to start with, can you give me kind of a concise, brief overview of, I mean, not just your research, but how this became really a passion? I mean, I covered some of it in your bio, but how did this become something that you're like, you know what? I really want this to become a big part of my life. Becky.
I think it was mainly being around people that, like it had existed, but I always told myself no. But when that invitation started to come closer and people started saying, "Hey, I'll pass you a note" at the front of the funeral home with all the haunted places in Connecticut. And I remember telling Amanda Paulson like 3 years ago, I was like, I don't want to be a paranormal person. I don't want that to be my identity. I literally said that. But then I kept meeting the amazing people in the field and they're like, no, like we want you here. And I think it became synonymous with everything. It's like there's this cohesive thread. It's like, oh, I like antiques. Sometimes those antiques are haunted. I go to haunted locations. They have a history. It's like an extension of what I was doing in the mortuary field. So I think everything in the past few years has really kind of catapulted me in a way where it's like this makes sense. And there are so many things in the past couple of years with you and Amy and Amanda and other Amanda where I have walked out of that situation saying this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life.
Yeah. Amanda, Noel, how about you?
Hi. So I actually sort of grew up in a haunted house. It was a house from the late 1700s. I was very young at the time, but the people who lived upstairs said that there was a woman in Victorian garb who would sit on their bed at night. Creepy. Unfortunately, that house was destroyed by a drunk driver, and we ended up losing everything. So I think a lot of the trauma that's been in my family and haunting in my family has really made me compassionate towards spirits and stories. That's why I think it's really important to really get to know a spirit before, show them that you actually care about their story. Um, and then sort of in 2020 area-ish, I started going to haunted places, and one of the places I went to, I accidentally stayed by myself at the Lizzie Borden house, and at the time, at least, it was extremely haunted. And I was like, wow, okay, this is a big deal. It was honestly, it was terrifying, but it was sort of a euphoric feeling. And I had this strange feeling that it was up to me to talk about Lizzie Borden's story, like the person behind the axe murderess that everyone knew. And in doing so, I immediately went viral for that topic. So it sort of felt like I was meant to be talking about it. So that sort of brought me here today.
Okay. Brought you here literally to this
Yeah.
interview. So for better or worse, I don't know. I don't know whether that's upward trajectory or
These
not.
are my life choices. Yeah.
Yeah. Lauren.
Um, I have always, well, it started with I used to really annoy my parents by taking all of the electronics apart at my house. I thought the basement was where you kept all of like the stuff that nobody wanted. So I was constantly going down there and like taking apart my dad's TV and like taking apart the phone and taking apart all these things. So he started bringing home these electronics for me to take apart to like distract me. And my mom was a reading teacher, so she was really big into horror. So I had Dean Koontz books like pre-10. I'm reading these like horror story books and these spooky stories, and of course we have like R.L. Stine and um, all of that good, fantastic literature that for some reason they put into the hands of small children. So I always had sort of this tech and spooky combination growing up. And as I got older, in 2004, the debut of Ghost Hunters, where I'm like, oh my gosh, people do this stuff for a living, and look at all the cool tools they have. And then fast forward, I joined a team that were the resident team at the Mansfield Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio. And some of the people on that team, Greg Ficetic, the head of the team, was like, oh, I have this piece of equipment, it doesn't work. And I'm like, can I take it apart? And he's like, yeah, here you go. And I ended up taking it apart and fixing it. And I was like, oh, this is like real rudimentary stuff. Like I can make these. And so I started making proximity sensors. And then it turned into like learning how to code and learning how to make other things. And it just like spiraled into control because same sort of thing that clicked, everything started working, pun intended. And I have been locked in this workshop ever since. I never leave.
Okay. So at least you have a good internet connection, so you can still do things
Absolutely.
like
Yeah,
this
I can
locked away.
for sure.
And Viva, you're even though I'm not a native New Yorker, I feel a kinship with my other spooky nerds that come from New York. So tell me a little bit about and obviously we've done this before, but a little bit about how you got into this.
Yeah, I got into this because my mother, I blame it all on her completely. She kind of grew me into what a lot of people would call a weirdo where I grew up. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and in a very harsh neighborhood. So my mother used to watch Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and Scariest Places on Earth with Linda Blair and all these other TV shows and everything. And it was more like a family gathering than something that was supposed to be scary and, oh my gosh, I can't sleep at night. And it was also a bonus because we were also having things happen while we were living there. The apartment building that I grew up in, there was a huge fire and a bunch of people died in that apartment building, and then they just built my apartment building on top of it. And not only was I watching these paranormal instances happen on TV, I was also living it. But of course, being a kid, having stuff like that happen, voices, hearing things, having stuff move around in the house, seeing things, it really just made me more afraid than anything. But then, of course, as I got older, I got into the business that I'm in currently, and I can actually try to figure the paranormal stuff out on my own terms. And that is the biggest win, in my opinion. I was always very curious about the paranormal, but I was just never brave enough to try to figure it out. So now that I am an adult, I have a really awesome team with Hidden Marietta that's behind me. And we go to a bunch of different places and do a bunch of different investigations. And not only has my mother's curiosity with the paranormal branched into my curiosity with the paranormal, it's also, for lack of better words, really helped me out with my path in life overall and helping me find who I truly am.
Right. And Amanda P.
Hi, Amanda P here, second Amanda. There's a lot of Amandas in the paranormal field, but so I had my first paranormal experience when I was about 7 years old in Montana, and I had a very traumatic upbringing, so it caused a lot of distrust in my experiences as a kid and my experiences with the paranormal. I wondered, throughout my life, did this actually happen? Or was it just imaginary? Was it a way of coping or escaping? And so that led me to join my first ghost hunting team in 2008 in Montana, called BPIS. And similar to Lauren, I was very inspired by like early ghost hunters at that time. So very equipment heavy, very much like finding scientific proof of the paranormal, and that was what guided me for a very long time until I started my blog Pretty Up and Spooky in 2019. And since then, I've done a lot of exploration, specifically out here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in Washington State. I've done a lot of research into high strangeness, so aliens, cryptids, ghosts, all of that, and kind of dug into the connectedness of it all. And that has sort of helped me find a way to deconstruct my distrust in my paranormal experiences, and later on, start to actually believe what's happening to me. And more recently, I've found a passion to help the living kind of journey through their paranormal experiences versus focusing on helping spirits or the non-living move on. So that's kind of how I got here today.
A couple of you mentioned watching the TV shows. Of course, like the wave of modern reality TV shows kind of began in 2004, which actually coincided with the ascendancy of social media. Did anyone not engage with those TV shows at all? Just like not on your radar or whatever. So, Becky or Amanda. So, like Becky, were you aware of it and you were just like, not for me, or what?
I have one instance where Ghost Hunters was on in the house, and my brother, he's 1 year younger than me. He said, there's this TV show where they find real ghosts. Like that was the context. And we had a wooden television, like one of those wooden box televisions, like old tube. And he was like, check this out. And it's like all grainy. And there's like people that we know that are like in this like green night vision. And I'm like, okay, that's it. Like that was the capacity I had to consume that meat, and that was it. And for a long time, I said I don't want to be a dude in cargo shorts and tight t-shirts and whatever.
Fair. I wanted to be a dude in cargo shorts, to be honest. I went through a period of time where I was like, I want to do that. Like I want to go hard, and I did. I went a little hard, but then I made my way back here, and now. But I'm not gonna hide it. I loved ghost hunting TV back in the day.
I had cargo vest envy all the time from Ghost Adventures. I mean, I still do.
Did they have cargo vests? I think. I mean,
oh
definitely.
Yes.
I mean, I know
tactical gear. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the whole like the fishing vest.
Yeah.
With everything everywhere.
Like all the pockets for all the trinkets, and it's like quick grab and go for battery.
Oh yeah.
It's
Or for snacks.
Or for snacks. Amanda, Noel, you weren't engaging with it at all, and even though you kind of grew up in this haunted house.
Yeah, I mean, I did like the show A Haunting. I'd run home and go into my mom's room to watch the TV because I didn't have my own TV, and eat little snacks after school. I remember that vividly. But I remember like if ghost hunting shows would come on, and even as a child, I was like, that looks kind of bullshit, honestly. So obviously, now I understand, but I think I've just always been more interested in the story behind, people's experiences rather than watching other people sit in the dark.
It seems like all of you came from sort of there's some spooky roots to some of your family. Did I miss anything? Anybody come from like sort of a hell no family? Like we are not talking about ghosts or paranormal.
I mean, I feel like most of my family was very much hell no about things. Ultimately, because growing up, I feel like most of my family kind of lived by the whole trope of we die first in a horror movie. So it's like, yep, you're welcome. It's fine to see it on sorry, Amanda, she's like cracking up. Like it's fine to see it on TV and like see it at a distance, but to actually go out and do something, you're always terrified of like, oh my gosh, what could possibly happen? The killer's right around the corner. And some of my family do think that I am kind of stupid. But I'm still here, so it's working out for me.
You're still here. And Amanda Paulson, same. What was sort of your family dynamic as it relates to thoughts about the paranormal?
Yeah, so I grew up with my mom, but she wasn't really present in my life, and my grandma ended up taking over, and she raised me Baptist, Baptist in Montana, to kind of paint the picture. And I was very, also very religious too. So all of us were just kind of like, that doesn't really fit into our religious framework, unless it's demons. And so there was no playing around with it. However, I was still experiencing it. Like I said, since I was 7 years old, it happened anyway. And then, once I grew up and became 18 years old, an adult, of course, that's when I started being able to explore it. And now they're a little more open to it, but they're still very Christian and very scared of it. And that's kind of where they were at with it. It's just a no-go. Don't play around with that stuff.
I spent a lot of time in meetings with production companies and networks, and there's still this very old-fashioned sensibility to they're still thinking like production companies and TV networks of 20, 30 years ago. And well, 20 years ago, I guess, when Ghost Hunters first came out. Meanwhile, each of you are not only doing your research and investigating and building equipment, but you're also all very active on social media. And I would say each of you are engaged with your crossover fandoms and then your own individual fandoms. So, what do you think? What do you think that the entertainment side, the TV side of things, doesn't quite understand about the state of paranormal and the state uh of paranormal fandom and kind of what people want? Does anyone have like a hot take on that?
I will take this one. I don't think that paranormal entertainment is necessarily made for paranormal investigators, obviously. I think that because we have access to the locations and we have access to the teams and we have access, like we know how to get the equipment and all those things, we're a hard market to entertain, even though a lot of us will still indulge in the entertainment. And for me, at least, I think entertainment has its place. I think the one thing that they are sort of leaving behind is yes, it's dominated by white men. And let's not get political here, but that's kind of something that has been a lot in this country. White men usually dominate most everything. So that's definitely something that they're falling short and falling behind on. But I do think that entertainment has its place because I think we can typically all agree, generally speaking, that paranormal investigation is very boring at times. We are not getting, live crazy action every time we go somewhere, at least out. There might be live crazy action inside your head, especially if you can see things, but it's not something that's like, whoa, this is so crazy. So the entertainment aspect and that shock value, I think, is really valuable to get people interested in it. And then they sort of dive into the field and they're like, oh, shoot, this is real boring. But like, I'm here. I guess I'm just going to keep going. And then it does get interesting, I think, at least. The deeper you get in, but it's kind of that like ebb and flow of getting into the paranormal. But I really think the only thing that they're leaving to be desired is the lack of diversity and inclusion and equity in the field.
Well,
And
that's
shit's so
the
expensive.
well, and that's sort of the paranormal investigator POV, versus entertainment. Uh, Add to that, what about like sort of the fandom? Because I mean, let's face it, a lot of people that might be following your content and engaging with it could be interesting, but they are interested in it, but not necessarily investigators. So, what about from your social followings, your fandoms? What do you think people want from what do you think people want as as it relates to paranormal content? Something that maybe on the traditional TV side they totally don't get and are missing. Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
I think,
Amanda?
oh, sorry, I went out of turn.
Okay. No, it's there's no turn. Amanda raised her hand though. I'll go Amanda, Noel, and then Becky, you pick it up from there.
So I think people are now looking less for the shock value. I think they're more looking for the people behind the ghosts, the actual stories of the people, because spirits were people. And I think they want people to be more compassionate. At least I know that people who follow me are really, appreciative of a more compassionate approach rather than, yelling at spirits and egging them on or calling them demons. So,
Yeah, well, and yet, Amanda Noel, you know, you're not always compassionate towards me. You can be very rude to me.
because you're a demon.
That's true. That's true.
All right,
I
we're
didn't I
going
didn't know we
there.
were gonna go there, but it's true. Becky, what's your take?
I think that when we're getting into social media content creation, we're losing the idea of a team. So everyone who was investigating in like 2004, 2000, they were like, we need to be on a team. And I've been in instances where
Mm.
there's like a team and it does make sense to have a role because you have a function and then you tactical go out, everyone does what they're supposed to do. But at the same time, a team creates faults. Whereas if you have a social media investigator that you trust, and that's what I've noticed is I have a very high level of trust, and when I bring someone on, they're like, oh, well, Becky, oh, well, this person likes this person. They look at who you follow, who you're interacting with, and there's more of an accountability for what we're endorsing on social media. So when you look at this team idea, they'll say, oh, well, so and so was on this show and this happened and it wasn't their fault, it was someone else's, right? And with me, it's like I'm absolutely 100% in control in what people are consuming from my end, unless I appear in someone else's video. And my audience is not usually consuming it. They're not going to my friend's video to watch that. So I think there's a very personal relationship and you get to weigh that gravity. So instead of a TV episode coming out, you're getting comments that are like, this video is all I needed to know that Ghosts are real. Like, this is what I needed to see. And that comes with weight and conscious.
Amanda Paulson, what is the whole demon pursuit the like full on hardcore demon pursuit? Uh, is that primarily, would you say, I'm asking you to stereotype or use, broad strokes here. Is that primarily a dude thing? Are you finding like is this are there women, like a strong contingent of women, especially younger women content creators that are harping on about demons, or is this just a dude issue?
That's a really great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. Um, I would say that
Why is my phone doing that?
it,
Hold on.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right. Lauren is having some sort, for anybody that is watching the video on this, Lauren
It's
is
starting to
having
attack me. I'm
some
so
sort of
sorry. I'm so sorry.
she was really
Hitchcockian, like,
excited.
yeah, it's
Continue.
okay. Sorry, Amanda, continue.
That's okay. I think she just got really into what I was about to say, which I'm flattered. No.
Very dramatic. I
Um,
am. I'm here.
yeah. It gave me time to think about my answer, so I appreciate it. But okay, if we're going to really look at it like men and women, because it's a spectrum. There, you know what I mean? And so, but if we're going to look at the men that I know and the women that I know and how they perceive um demons or like negative entities or whatever, I would say that I commonly see men articulating that demon is a spiritual presence or entity, and women are typically attributing demonic activity to humans. And so I don't know what that means, but that's typically what I see. Like with women, there's a lot of talk about the spiritual element of the paranormal and evil eye and energy coming from humans and coming from the living, whereas you see men typically, commodifying or like really just like bringing it up with like spirits and ghost hunting, and that they make it a demon thing in that way. But like I don't know. I think that though everyone is has equal feelings about demons. And I think that the demon conversation, I used to be really anti-demon for a long time. And I just like I was like, I absolutely do not believe in it. But I've since changed my mind on that. And I think it's important and good for us to change our mind in this field, especially. I think that there's a lot of weight in what we each individually believe in, and that inherently makes it exist and makes it true for that person. And so I don't mess with the demon narrative or the demon stuff myself. But I don't like push, I don't, what's the word? Push, saying push the bear poke the bear. I don't poke the bear with it either. I'm not trying to dredge up anyone else's demons. But anyway, that was a long-winded answer. But yeah, demons on ghost hunts, yeah, it's typically a man thing, I think.
Especially I think with the content creation side of it. I mean, I've seen
Absolutely.
it. I think you can kind of break it down age-wise as well. There
Hmm.
tends to be the older skewing investigators, both male and female. And again, I'm generalizing here, but based on my experience, maybe more likely, especially white, of certain religious bents tend to kind of be a little bit more quick to jump on the demon train, which, by the way, I want to see Demon Train in concert. But yeah, so I think it's kind of like an age thing as well. Uh, I guess kind of like along with that, have you noticed, especially for those of you that have really been kind of paying attention to the entertainment genre since 2004 as fans, and now you're these creators, have you noticed an expansion of the beliefs or the theories or the ideas out there beyond sort of just Judeo-Christian, but encompassing a larger scope of philosophies? Anybody want to take that? Maybe I'm wrong. Seems to me like I'm seeing more interest in a wide swath of folklore, beliefs, mythology, as well as different spirituality and spiritualism instead of just Judeo-Christian theology. Lauren?
I think there's like a big, I'm going to say ebb and flow 9 million times. So I'm going to think of a different descriptor to use. But I think there is a huge reemergence, but this is a historic thing. It's happened before. We had like Victorian era spiritualism that got really, really, really popular. And then even though the satanic panic was something really scary, it was still a real like big rise in some sort of thing that we are not able to see. And then again, we have a lot of, I mean, witchcraft is really super being normalized. There's a rise in paganism. There's all of this social acceptance and all of these new things. And not and it's not to bash other religions, but just like the fact that a lot of the entertainment industry is dominated by white men, a lot of the world is dominated by Christianity and Christian beliefs. And I think that there's a point where people sort of start to question, what is it that I'm following or believing in? And there's all of these other options out there, all of these deities, all of these places to explore. And because it's growing in this like mass consciousness way, people are being more comfortable with it and like coming out of the broom closet and noticing that the religious beliefs that were sort of ingrained in our, either our childhoods or anything like that, or our parents' childhoods, are based a lot on these really old practices. And going with what Amanda 1 was saying, I'm just going to say Amanda 1 and 2 because you guys were like one on top and one on the bottom. Blonde Amanda, sorry. Ghosty, spooky, ghosty short Amanda, love it. Was saying with people really wanting to be into the history portion of the paranormal, I think it goes that we're really interested to see like where we as human beings and where we as like spiritual beings come from. And it's not, I'm trying to be very delicate here because I have so much respect for people that have any faith, but Christianity is not a very old belief system. There are beliefs and deities and practices that are far older that these sort of newer revelations of spirituality sort of, took from. And I am very happy to see that it is being popularized again and people are comfortable with it. And I think it's changing the tides of this industry big time.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's okay, Viva. Yeah, pick it up from there.
Oh, okay. I was going to say honestly, because of the internet and social media as well, I think people just have access to each other a lot more, and they have access to a lot of information from not only just your community, but also from different states, different countries, all across the world. And that is able to kind of help that spirituality come forth in a different sort of way in a different location. Social media can be a gift and a curse in that way, where some people have an excess of information and then some people just don't have enough information. And I think the fact that people have the ability to do their own research about different religions, different spiritual practices, especially if you're able to travel and learn about different spiritual practices as well, it does also help. But I think just to kind of cycle back a little bit, I do feel like men do tend to kind of lean towards something negative versus something spiritual when it comes to women. And I think it's because when they're scared, they maybe don't think that something as minuscule, quote unquote, minuscule as a dead Victorian woman could do something so scary to them. So automatically they're like, it can't be like a dead female ghost. It has to be something beyond that that's scaring me. Because I think a lot of times men can't really cycle through their emotions properly. So they have to blame it on something a little bit bigger than what it actually is. I think women tend to have a little bit more empathy for spirits and for different energies and for other people. Naturally, we're just caregivers, we're very nurturing. So I think that also branches not only into physical, but also into spiritual as well. But yeah, just having access to each other, just having conversations with other people outside of your community, whether it be face to face or on social media, it really does help open people's eyes as to what might actually be out there.
I think that's an incredible insight. I really appreciate that. I think that's definitely on the nose on both parts. And I kind of think on top of that, my thought is that sort of post COVID, not really post COVID, but previously we've had these moments of great cultural trauma, and then what resulted was this rise in spiritualism, and it's a little bit different each time. And I kind of wonder if this is like sort of neo post modern spiritualism, where the way it's evolving is more secularized, more spiritual, more tied to the high strangeness and the kind of the folklore out there, instead of just heaven, hell, living, dead person, etc.
I think
Um,
people
Yeah.
are starting to question things now since
yeah.
COVID, because I feel like everybody was on a specific path for so long, and then once people were trapped inside with their own thoughts, with their family members, with their friends, with their loved ones, it really started to change their path and change the way that they approach things, because they started to actually be alone with their thoughts, and they were able to kind of go outside of the bubble that was previously created.
I, um,
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's a great insight. Amanda, Noel, anybody can weigh in on this, but what do you think your older, and then specifically older male colleagues in this community don't get or have blinders on about, that you sometimes want to shake them and be like, how are you missing this?
Huh. Um, I mean, I think I do have some like older male colleagues that I think are, um, pretty open, pretty compassionate. I sort of try not to go too near older male people who might not have the same, views as I do. But I mean, I've definitely been on investigations before where it was a public investigation. I sort of dropped in just to see, how everything was. And I remember there was this guy with this giant camera, and I was like, oh, he must be pretty official. No, he just also dropped in, but also brought this giant camera. And I was like, what are you doing with this giant camera? Like, let's just all like talk to the spirits, like put it down for like a little bit. It was just so strange. And it just seemed like that, I don't know, that person in particular was sort of trying to hog the investigation. And it's like, really, it's not about us and our egos or our content. It's about making connections with the spirits, giving a voice to the voiceless. So I think that can definitely get lost in the whole, uh, content creation, YouTube sensation of it all. So.
Mm-hmm.
if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's a good response, and that's definitely from sort of the investigative approach and strategy perspective. Anybody want to? I mean, we also can talk about like the interpersonal, elements of, older male colleagues, et cetera. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? Something else that you just want to shake someone and be like, "Oh, WTF, dude."
We all
Viva.
raise our hands.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I,
Well,
you know, I
well,
I want to I want to say something on that really quick, kind of. Um, yes, I do want to shake some people, but also I wish I had more opportunity to present to my, I guess, my audience, or to other people investigating, to stop and examine why men, or anyone, but men in this case, are behaving the way that they're behaving in an investigative like environment in that moment, and dig into what they're personally going through and kind of what the psychological process is for them, on how they're perceiving it and processing that experience. Because, yes, while it's frustrating, absolutely, for me to have a different investigative style than, say, a man who is maybe, being over masculine and like changing the environment in a way I don't like, they also are there for some like deeper reason, and trying to kind of get to something. Maybe, I mean, there are some bad people, obviously there are exceptions to this, like there are the people who are solely there for content, but then there are also people there who are making content but also care very deeply. And so I'm trying to learn to like stop in that moment and not want I want to learn to want to shake people less. You know what I mean? And like really talk to them, even the men who are yelling and screaming and running out, like, why are you doing that? Like, let's talk about it. You know, and sometimes surprisingly, I've been on investigations before. One sticks out to me that I was investigating with a man and his son, and it was going in a weird direction. It was like about really graphic stuff and demon stuff, and it was just going really weirdly. And then he was talking about how he's a police officer, and it was a public investigation, so I didn't know this man, and I started to kind of pick up his life and why maybe it was going in this direction in the first place. And it was very insightful, if anything, for me to realize, wow, I actually don't know everything or understand what's going on here at all. So I don't
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but just another perspective.
I mean, as someone that does a lot of these events, which I love doing, I appreciate doing it. You definitely start kind of peeling back the psychological layers on people and trying to understand why they are. And I would also say there's like the different kind of pockets of people, the people that are like they're on a journey of curiosity, the people that just want quote unquote the piece of evidence, that holy grail in their minds, the people that are there for the history. It's so many different um motives and motivations there. Just to Viva, Viva, Becky, does anybody else want to weigh in on that? The male colleague thing, Viva?
Yeah. I think that also my light died, so don't mind the change in atmosphere here. Um, but I think that a lot of times TV shows kind of give men kind of permission in a way to act the way that they do whenever they do investigations. Of course, just like Amanda said, not all men act like this. I know very many men that investigate and they do a fantastic job. But they see these guys rushing into like the entertainment paranormal stuff. They see these men rushing into a location with their cameras and they're hooting and hollering and they're screaming and carrying on. So automatically they think, okay, well, this gets views, this gets people's attention. I should go ahead and do the exact same thing. The one thing that I always stress to people whenever I'm doing tours or doing any sort of investigations, I always stress to people, they were here first. You have to lead with respect when it comes to the paranormal. I always tell people, I have a stupid Star Wars joke of like, they can see you, but you can't see them. So they technically have the higher ground, Anakin. But like, it's a stupid, nerdy joke.
It's
No,
not.
you're definitely speaking my language.
You're gonna make
So
Aaron cry.
yes.
But it's true. It's like they really do have the higher ground. And so you have to kind of sit and understand their energy first and let them understand your energy before you just start going guns a blazing, because that's not what it's about. Just the same way how Ghost Shirt Amanda had stated, it's about the history, it's about what they have to say, it's about what energy could be left in a location, and it's not just about the views, and it's not just about what content you can create out of this. It's about connecting and having real emotions and treating them like people. Just because they're dead, it doesn't mean anything.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on that briefly? We'll move on to the next topic. Okay, Becky.
There's a power imbalance when it comes to men and the claims that they make versus a woman. So men are automatically given credence, and I'm speaking in a very general way, and I understand there's nuance, but like if a man says this is the most demonic, evil, malevolent haunting I've ever experienced, they're like, wow. But if it's a woman, it's automatically you're already weak because you're a woman. So I feel like that is one thing that they could be cognizant of, is understanding and letting us be empowered enough to understand what we're doing. And I'm finally getting to a point where people of both sides respect me. But when I first came around 4 years ago and I said, I think it's okay to have Ouija boards in your house and use them as you wish, people said, you don't know what you're doing, stupid girl. And that's how we're viewed. So I think that that's important. And also, outside of the investigation, understanding why, if a man does not make you uncomfortable, but makes 7 other women uncomfortable, why we need to speak up and you need to be in solidarity, even if it doesn't affect you. Because I think that's a lot of our experience, and allowing us to feel safe and like speak up, because we are in the dark, in the middle of nowhere. We're strangers, and this is a community that could easily be a pipeline to abuse.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and it's such a it's a good point, and it's something that I think we're just not discussing enough in this community, whether it's events, production, whatever. It's one thing to say, okay, we're gonna go send these investigators down that creepy hall. They're gonna be down there for an hour. We're not gonna let them out until that hour is up. Like we have to think about these safety measures, safety precautions, and it honestly, until recently, and honestly through you, Becky, kind of talking a lot about this, it hasn't really been a conversation point. And so I do think it's very necessarily something to be thinking about and considering. um what would you say that you've learned about yourself in entering this white male dominated field? And I get it. Again, I know that you're also researchers and historians, and you're doing incredible things, but you are also part of this as a profession now. So what is something you've learned about yourself in entering this white male dominated field?
I
Viva?
would say that I have learned that I'm braver than I gave myself credit for. When I was dealing with stuff when I was younger, I was just always terrified. And now that I am in a space mentally and physically where I can kind of put on this sort of bravado and walk into a place like, hey girl, hey, like I can be myself and I can be strong and brave and still hold on to my femininity, um, and still work with people of all different backgrounds and stuff, and it doesn't change who I am and how I investigate. And then of course also understanding and learning that you can also learn new things. A lot of people forget as well that even though you've been in the field for however long, you can still learn new ways to investigate, new ways to approach things, new ways to research, and new ways to do all these things just by working with others and just genuinely being a good person. And I'm happy that I'm a part of this community and I'm able to bring myself forth.
Thank you. Anyone else want to respond to that? Becky?
I just wanted to add to what Viva said, where you find yourself being the only voice. And I remember, and Amanda knows this story well, because the first time I was like out at an outing, someone said, "Don't ever talk bad about anyone in this field." And that was told to me. And I took that to heart and I was like, okay, I'll never say anything bad, even if it needs to be said. And then it became these conversations of this guy creeps everybody out and nobody's saying anything. And you're like, well, you're not going to say something. You're not going to say something. Am I going to be that person that is that person that spoke up about something? And I found myself being that person, which was empowering because there have been times where I spoke up about something and I didn't think it would do anything. And then I watch other people just go and I'm like, all I had to say was the one thing. And everyone else, you can be the person that starts the effect that causes change. And there's definitely a balance to that. But when there are times where it's a bystander effect. And sometimes you need to allow yourself to be that voice because there are people who've been doing things a certain way for a very long time.
The sad reality is that, and this is more from the kind of the TV and the entertainment side. The sad reality is that when people are putting together these projects, they are going to look at each of you and think about the type. It's a casting process, right? It's unfortunate. It's something to try to break down. I mean, everybody is subject to it. Unfortunately, women get the harshest view at it. What are some tropes that you would like to retire, both about women being out front on the entertainment side of the paranormal, as well as just tropes overall within paranormal entertainment that you'd like to retire?
That women are all psychics.
Okay.
Nothing, no hate to the psychics, but because I
No.
also think it takes away from psychics and mediums because they just assume that if you are a woman, you are like wafting around in scarves and seeing spirits all the time. And when I first entered the paranormal, I was like, I don't know, should I like, oh, I see the children. And then I'm like, I can't see anything. Like I'm a nerd. I want to build stuff. That's all I want to do. There's
Yeah.
nothing with that. There's no sensitivity. And I felt so disconnected because I'm like the small group that I started to be a part of, just women were the psychics. And I'm like, I don't know. So I would love for that to definitely be retired. Psychics
Yeah.
and that women don't know anything about tech. That I would really love to retire that.
Amanda Paulson.
Um, I know that there is this continuous trope in traditional media, especially that there must always be a male counterpart to a woman, or that there must be a male lead to a group. Um, and I'd love to see that retire. I am extremely grateful and humbled by the fact that I was just able to film with Amy and Sarah Lemos recently, Amy Bruni and Sarah Lemos, and getting to work on camera together as three women and seeing how we each fell into what was naturally our part that we were playing in a very healthy way. Because yes, you do kind of end up falling into a character or whatever when it comes to media, and I'm personally okay with that. Like I get that, but to see three women do it together was really cool, and I think worked really well. And I know that I personally have been told many times that in whatever I'm doing, there must be a man. The man comes first, and then there's the woman counterpart, or the man was the lead that they had it in mind at first, or whatever. And that's very niche and specific to traditional media, but that that kind of idea perpetuates everything in our life. There must always be a man leading us, and I'd like to see that go.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I mean, with a lot of the meetings and that I'm a part of, there is still within that traditional media. I mean, even though traditional media is dying and it's a dinosaur, but there's still these ideas that go back 20 years to the beginning of this current wave of this genre.
Well, and
Um,
especially if you think about too, like the complexity of each human, and like I said, that our identities as women or men is a spectrum, and we all kind of can identify differently or feel differently. Some of us, feel differently one day than another. It, tr Traditional media tends to forget that, like, there doesn't like there can be that masculine element coming from a woman, or like there can be a dichotomy of energies in a cast or in a group of investigators, that can create something really cohesive and cool without it having to actually be like a man and a woman, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Anyone else want to weigh in on maybe a trope that you'd like to see go away, Viva?
It's not so much a trope I want to see go away, but I would love to see more people of color in the paranormal field.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I know that there are other POCs out there, from several different backgrounds and everything, but you don't see them on mainstream anything. You kind of see them in passing if somebody posts about them, or like shares some of their content, or you see them like really quickly on an interview or something, but they don't get the main stage, and that has always been a bother to me. Of course, like I try to kind of insert myself into the conversation and insert myself onto that sort of main stage, as much as I can. Of course, I'm not as cool as everybody else here, but I still think
Not
that
true. Sorry to interject.
okay. But like honestly, I feel like you guys would get more play and more opportunities than say I would, which is, it sucks. It's the unfortunate truth, and I understand that truth, and in a way I'm kind of fine with it, but at the same time I know that I have something to fight against. I have something to work towards. So even though that might be a hindrance for me, it just makes me want to fight even more for people of color, not just Black people, like brown people. Like I want everybody on TV. Like I don't know why there aren't more representation on television, on the internet, on social media and stuff like that. But I'm hoping that at some point that changes. But it's just a matter of, I guess, getting the right eyes on the right people and creating magic and creating something beautiful.
I can say as far as that goes, and I agree. I mean, there most certainly there most certainly needs to be just better representation across the board. I mean, look, obviously, I look the way I look. I want to keep working, but I also want more people to be working. I want more people out there. And I do think so. What I hear from that, and again, we're talking about traditional media. What I hear a lot of time is well, that demographic just doesn't watch the shows, just doesn't tune in. That's where I'm encouraged by things like social media and the creation that I'm seeing out there, because the people out there that are representative of the people that are existing and living and walking down the street, they are tuning in and they are watching you. And I don't know how to fix the problem other than trying to keep pushing that truth that we need to get more people out there. Other than maybe also making a lot of noise on social media and you know and creating movements that way. But it is a problem. There's no question about it. It's such old style thinking with it. The the other thing I was kind of thinking about is, like, speaking of the fandom perspective, fans can be great, can support us, can really boost the numbers, get the name out there, but they can also be an obstacle. They can also be negative, right? There can be toxic fandoms out there. What are some big obstacles that need to be addressed within the paranormal fandoms that you're seeing and interacting with that are, again, traditionally especially harsh towards women? But what are some of those obstacles that need to be shut down? What needs to be communicated to some of the fans out there? Amanda, Noel?
I don't know if this is relevant to what you're saying or not, but as a woman, I find that, so like if I wanted to, like, say, go live somewhere, like at a location, I wouldn't necessarily feel safe with naming where I am live because someone could just show up. Like I'm
Mm,
5'3". I yeah, so like I find that a lot of and a lot of times like people in the comments would be like, what if I just showed up? I'm like, don't do that. I find a lot that male creators can sort of do that. They can go live where they're at and be like, yeah, I'm here by myself, and not necessarily have to fear someone, grabbing them and kidnapping them. So that's one thing I would say is safety, please.
Yeah.
Um, would be it'd be nice to feel safe,
Yeah.
with them.
And a sensitivity towards that safety amongst the fans. Yeah. Becky.
I had someone ask me yesterday if I would ever go on a date with a fan. And I think that's where maybe that's not exclusive to one side, I'm sure. But it's just there does seem to be like a little bit of entitlement more towards the men. Like I follow you. You have to respond to my DMs. Every single woman here has a man in her DMs that they feel obligated to be polite to in order to maintain that parasocial relationship and without creating like an enemy or an awkward situation for themselves. And that's all of us. And some of us it's the same man. And there's definitely a different interest outside of that because we watch the way they interact and which creators they're interacting with. And I do feel like there is more of a like you kind of owe me something because you're here, or we are analyzed for our looks a little
Fucking
bit.
hitting the feels. Sorry, excuse my language. That's
Yeah, because
so
you have one, right? And we haven't even talked about this, but everyone has one. And you put something out and it's like, wow, you look really pretty today. And like that's the interest. There is a focus on appearance that isn't there for men who can go sweaty, greasy, investigate and still have the same applause.
I will say, there is like I get a fair amount of creepiness, but every time I get the creepy message, which is frequent, my immediate thought is like, first off, this is creepy, and uh I can't even imagine what my women colleagues are dealing with, and friends, women colleagues and friends are dealing with. So every time I get one of those, I'm like, that's one compared to the 10 dozen, that you're dealing with. Um, Lauren.
I like how I'm pointing, like you guys know who I'm pointing at. Um, and I don't even think that all the time it's even sexual or romantic. Like what Becky was saying, we have these men that are in our ether that have, for some reason, a lot of influence, or they know a lot of people, or they go to a lot of locations, or they have all these followers, and we feel obligated to be polite to them or at least be neutral because it's very easy to cancel a woman and it's not as easy to cancel a man. It's very easy to discredit a woman and it's not as easy to discredit a man. And not to step up because Amanda Paulson, I believe you or not believe, I agree with you wholeheartedly that this whole idea of man woman, it's such a spectrum. And even to play off of that too, that when it comes to the also like sexual identity and sexual preference of women, like if we're not being flirtatious and sexy and wearing, and making ourselves look cute and wearing makeup, like we're automatically, oh well, you must be gay. You must be gay. You're not paying attention to me. You must be gay. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's never an insult. I'm usually like, uh-huh, yep, absolutely. And my husband's like, oh yeah, she's super gay. But so it's either like it's either just like we're forced to be neutral with these people that on the back burner we're like I want to just avoid this person so badly, but I feel afraid that they're going to ruin this. I'm fairly new to the public side of the paranormal, so I have a lot of people that I'm just neutrally okay with because I'm afraid that I'm gonna be kind of smashed into the dirt. So, oh man, I didn't realize this was gonna be like emotional and stuff, guys. Man, the
I
end.
would say that for me, I get all sorts of really crazy like DMs and stuff. And there's a group that I work with pretty regularly, and they're guys. And I have actually, which I haven't even told them about this, I usually just like block and delete them and everything, but I have gotten messages from people basically just being like, why are you like even investigating with them? Like, you are redacted, redacted, redacted. Just like horrible, like disgusting stuff. And it's just like, dude, I'm just here for vibes.
And with receipts.
Yeah, like I'm just here to hang out. I'm just here for vibes. And some people just like don't understand that like we're just trying to exist in the same space. Like everybody has said thus far, is just so heavily male dominated. We're just trying to exist, and I guess for lack of better words, put our name out there, and we still get shit on. But yeah, it's a crazy, it's just so weird. It's so weird. But I will say also, I just, as you were talking, Lauren, one thing that I would love to change about like the paranormal and everything, why do women always have to look all pretty and makeup and stuff? Like, why can't somebody like investigate with a Snuggie and like a mug and some slippers or something like that? Like, we don't have to always just, like Becky said, like the guys are usually like sweaty and like greasy hair sometimes, and we just have to be very prim and very proper and very, it's like
No sweat.
yeah,
No sweat.
like no sweating, no sweaty armpits or anything. Like, we are human beings as well. Like, there's no real difference. If this goal is the same, then that should be the only thing that matters. If the goal is to find paranormal evidence, nothing else should matter. As long as like the goal, the chemistry is all up to par, then it shouldn't matter who you are, what your background is, what you look like, how you dress, if you have on lashes or anything. It shouldn't.
It is still very much a part of the traditional media casting, and I do think that there's moves to try to make changes in that way. I mean, the one thing I'll say is that you still need to have some sort of personality or charisma, or be able to have, and on the entertainment side of it,
Mhm.
to be able to work, to click, on camera. But there are definitely different looks and different approaches to this that need to be represented. I want to be sensitive of everybody's time. Viva, I know you got to go in a minute. Can I squeeze out just a couple more questions before we get you? Okay, thank you. I I wanted to ask, what is something that, look, we're having this great conversation here, and many of you know each other, but we're bringing new people together. So what is something new that you learned, or a new perspective maybe you gained by finding community with other women in this paranormal space? Does anyone want to?
I'm gonna take it just because she's here. Spending time with somebody like Becky, who is basically like, not only is it important for us to talk about everybody in the paranormal to make sure that we all know the same information, but it should be encouraged amongst women. And I was like, Becky. Whew. But to have women that, to find a community of women that are like, we need to speak up. And I'm fair on my social media. I get fairly political with my stuff. I get very much, I definitely do uncomfortable posts, but being able to be around women that are so much more direct, that I'm comfortable with, has pushed me outside of my comfort zone, and has shown me like it's okay to be more direct in my approach of creating my boundaries and creating my safe like space in the community. And there's going to be other people that are going to support you and be there for you and back you up and make you feel heard and make you feel seen in that. And I mean, it's baby steps, but to know that as a woman entering the paranormal, I am not the only, you know, I don't have to make my combativeness as much of a secret as I thought I was going to have to, I guess. So it's very refreshing.
Yeah. Does seem like there's a risk no matter what, because I mean, and different for women than for me, but the like the rest of the world, the rest of the country, there is sort of this divisiveness that has definitely taken root. So,
Women are often pitted against each other too,
yeah.
because we're community creatures.
Hmm. Anyone else want to weigh in on, pick up on what Lauren said? I mean, either the community creatures or the new perspective, something you learned by finding community with other women in this space.
I it's not necessarily something that I learned, or maybe rather something that I relearned, reintroduced back into my life. With some of the women I've been able to meet from the paranormal community, which has been few because I'm on the other side of the country from most of them, but it has reintroduced this like sense of um, my inner child has come back, and this like sense of play has come back in my life with these women that I've met through the paranormal community in particular, because even though we very much, believe in what we're doing, there is still this element of fantasy and play to this field and what we're doing. And being able to do it with other women, like I've spent time with Becky and Viva in particular, and like the absolute like unfettered joy that I felt from getting to do what I love and have it be weird and do it with other women has been hugely transformational for me as someone in their 30s and very much like an adult. It just has like really changed also the way that I understand maturing and aging too, and like realizing that women bring back this like sense of play back into my life, especially in this field. So
Yeah. And we can be respectful and empathetic and also have fun doing this. Anyone else want to add to that?
No, I think what they said was pretty much perfect. That's exactly what I would have said. Bravo.
And it's two more quick questions. We have one from the audience that, aside from the other women that are on this panel, who are some women in the paranormal that inspire you? And they don't even have to be people that are alive right now. We have a long tradition of women that have been at the forefront of paranormal and spiritism. But anyone that has inspired you?
Me, I would say my mother. Obviously, she's not in the paranormal community or anything, and she doesn't typically like to investigate. But she has been such a big support system for me, and anything that I'm on, she's watching. Anything that I post, she supports. Anything that I like, all the stories and stuff that I tell her about, she always wants to just kind of put her 2 cents in and be like, oh well, blah blah blah. So even though like she's not technically a part of the paranormal community, I think she is a big inspiration for me to keep doing what I'm doing and continue to just be who I am as a person.
That's lovely. Who else?
I have some people I'd love to like just shout out basically, but I mean there's so many, so obviously this list is never ending, but um it comes to mind Sarah Lemos, like I said, is a medium I was lucky enough to work with recently, and she was a very supportive um awesome woman in the paranormal field, willing to learn and grow, and I really appreciated that. There's also two women here in my area. They go by Para Northwest online. They're Indigenous sisters, and they bring a really important voice to the paranormal community. And then also Alex LeMay, which I'm sure all of you guys know, but she has just been a great bright light in the paranormal recently too. I'll leave it at that, so I won't just keep going. There's a lot more, but those are
Yeah,
some recently.
shoot me the information for the Para Northwest sisters, was it? I would love
Yeah.
to look into them, speak with them. Becky.
I've done a few events out in the Midwest, and there's a woman who is intuitive and very kind, and her name is Rebecca, and she works out at Madison Seminary with the
Rebecca Joe.
Yeah, yes. And she is literally the sweetest. Like when I was talking to her, I was like, I don't want to stop talking to you. Like I feel like you're speaking into my soul. And she's very kind. And she's so hardworking, and she's doing all of these events, and she's there from like 6 o'clock in the morning till wee hours in the morning afterwards. And I think she is really awesome, and I don't see as many people talking about her because there's, again, so many men in that side of things. And that was something. And then one other person that has inspired me is back in 2009 when I had my first experience. There was uh, a society at my college called the Paranormal Society of IUP, and my English professor at the time was actually sitting there. And now, in retrospect, I didn't understand then because I thought it was just generally accepted. But thinking you're sitting at the board of an institution and you're an English professor and you're offering this insight and meeting, and now all those buildings have been torn down, and I don't know where the ghosts have gone. But I just think about like how much it takes to push through over time to become a woman that is taken seriously. And that's a theme that has come up for me because being in the mortuary field and having to announce, hi, I'm doing paranormal things now. Please still take me seriously. Please understand that I can still operate in the capacity to embalm a human person, but with reverence. And it's not going to be the we're running from death and scary show.
Yeah. Okay. Amanda, Noel.
Well, I mean, awkwardly, the couple people that inspired me, women, they're pretty well-known names. I don't know if you've heard of Amy Bruni, but I actually never watched ghost hunting shows, but her book came up on, on my to read, and I read it and I was like, who is this woman? She sounds amazing. And I've since met her and done events with her, investigated with her, and I've just been blown away. Like she's great to people, great to spirits. Her Strange Escapes events, everyone there who comes there, for some reason, they're just the most supportive people I've ever met. And I'm just like, wow, she just draws all these wonderful people together. And then the second person is Andrea Perrin. When you Obviously she's the woman who wrote the books, House of Darkness, House of Light. She's the about the Conjuring House story. But when you hear her talk, it's you're filled with warmth and you're inspired. At least I am when I hear her. So those are my two women in the paranormal.
Andrew Perrin is a force of nature. There's a lot of love for that woman in this community, and I just she makes me laugh too. So, um, I, I know it's not enough to hold like an occasional women in paranormal panel, and I know it's necessary to be, and it's not enough to say we need a woman on this TV show to tick a box. There needs to be constant awareness and observation about what's happening out there to make this better and to evolve both the field and evolve the entertainment industry. So, but I do appreciate you joining for this specific panel. Before I let you go, obviously, each of you have a lot of fans out there, but for folks that, may be just discovering you, how can people find and support you and support your work? I will begin with Viva.
Oh, hi. I am online, pretty chronically online, unfortunately. I am on Instagram, which is at Viva La Melisa. I'm on TikTok, which is Viva La Melisa 2, because my other page got banned. I don't know why. And then I also have a podcast that I do with my friends called the Coffee and Scream podcast. And I generally just post really funny, silly, spooky content. I travel quite a bit for my job, to do research and stuff, so I get to go to a lot of cool places, and I document that as well. So yeah.
and people can visit the Hidden Marietta website and actually come check out your venue and take tours and investigate the location. Yes.
Yes, whenever I have to, like, I'm forced to like talk about myself, I get nervous and I get flustered and I forget stuff.
The
But
Anchorage Mansion is beautiful and it's amazing, and they have an incredible team.
Thank you, Lauren. The Anchorage Mansion is located in Marietta, Ohio. I'm one of the co-owners with Hidden Marietta. I'm usually there all the time. You can come do tours, do investigations. You can do self-guided tours. And then we also have a curiosity shop where we sell little oddities. We sell knickknacks. We sell witchy items. We sell clothing. So it's a female-owned business. We have 4 owners to Hidden Marietta. They're all women, and I'm the only POC. So I'm very proud of myself for that. I do make my mama proud in that regard. But yeah, you can always come and hang out with me, do a tour with me, or just come by and say hi and visit the house.
And check out the hiddenmarietta.com site. Amanda Paulson.
I am at Pretty Effin' Spooky everywhere online, and that's FN, not the real word. prettyeffinspooky.com. I have a film coming out this December called The Lady of the Lake. That should be out to stream. And then I also, you'll find me on Amy Bruni's page occasionally with the project that we just filmed that should be coming out beginning of 2025.
Great. Lauren Hellekson.
Lauren Haunts. That's you can just find me everywhere on that. I'm the only, thankfully right now I'm the only Lauren Haunts online. So laurenhaunts.com, at Lauren Haunts, Lauren Haunts.
And if someone wants to acquire some of your gear, however,
laurenhaunts.com/shop. But I'm on a hiatus until November. I'm getting caught up on a whole bunch of orders, and I'm releasing a new piece of equipment in November. So November 1st, Lauren Haunts, and it's gonna be super cool.
Okay.
The coolest.
Amanda Noel.
So I'm Spooky New England on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for the older people. I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's true. It's okay. You can say that.
I mean, it's a surprising amount of people go on Facebook, but and I have a podcast that I occasionally do called the Axe Murder Diaries. It's actually highlighting stories from back in the day that no one's heard of because I'm mostly known for Lizzie Borden, so I'm sort of trying to highlight those stories so they're not forgotten. But right now, I'm mostly focusing on my book. I've actually been contracted to write a book about the Lizzie Borden case and the reason she may or may not have done it and the ethics behind that, as well as the history of the paranormal with that case. So
very excited. Okay. Great. Oh, and a double gun salute
Woo!
at the end there. That was the capper. I like it. And Beckie-Ann Galentine.
If you go to your local cemetery, turn right 3 times and find the biggest mausoleum in the back. Knock 3 times and say, "My bloody Galentine, my bloody Galentine, my bloody Galentine." I'll appear. We'll do our monthly male sacrificial ritual, I think. We're all in agreement to go forward with that. No, it's My Bloody Galentine on TikTok and Instagram, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so I have to stay on your good side so I don't become part of that
I have his
ritual
address.
sacrifice. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, just kidding.
Well, my friends, I really appreciate your time today, and it's an excellent conversation, and I can't wait to. I have to say that each of you inspires me, and I'm so excited to and honored to call you friends and to be watching all the work that you're doing because, as I said earlier, you know, you're definitely part of the new guard pushing this forward, and your work is incredibly important to me personally, but also professionally and as a paranormal enthusiast. So this has been Talking Strange. I have been Aaron Sagers. I plan on remaining Aaron Sagers for the foreseeable future. And until next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.